Welcome to Offutt Air Force Base, established in 1896 as Fort Crook and named for the legendary U.S. Army General George Crook, who served from 1852 to 1890. The installation is the oldest original Army fort west of the Mississippi River. When it was first established, Fort Crook was an Army cavalry post built to keep the peace between the settlers of the Nebraska Territory and the Native Americans. In 1921, a runway was built. The fort retained its name, but the runway was christened Offutt Field for Lieutenant Jarvis Offutt, a native of Omaha who became the city's first air casualty. The plane Offutt was on crashed over France during World War I. When the Air Force broke away from the Army in 1947, the entire installation was renamed Offutt Air Force Base. The 55th Wing is the current host unit of Offutt Air Force Base and is known as the Fightin' 55th. It's the premier reconnaissance, combat support, and command and control unit in the Air Force. The base is about 4,004 acres and includes areas outside the gates like the Erling Bergquist Clinic, which houses our medical team, a child development center, and our military housing area. We have approximately 10,000 active duty personnel and civilians currently assigned to Offutt Air Force Base. Offutt is home to the United States Strategic Command, or STRATCOM. It's one of the nation's 9 unified commands, comprised of people and assets from the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines. Its mission, to direct all of the nation's nuclear forces. The new building, which was opened in the fall of 2019, was a $1.3 billion project, half for the building and half for the equipment inside. The missiles on display in front of the old STRATCOM building are a Navy Trident II submarine-launched missile and an Air Force Minuteman I missile, symbolizing STRATCOM's role in national security. Once all the required personnel are working out of the new building, the underground portion of this building will be destroyed. Looking out over the hill from the old STRATCOM building is the section of the base which was flooded in March 2019, with waters reaching 13 feet. Here at the Military Working Dog Kennels, our canines and their handlers use the building and the obstacle course for training. Our combat arms facility is where security forces teach others about weapons and weapons safety. After their training, they use what they learn in the shoot house. The walls are adjustable to set up for different scenarios like an active shooter. We also have local police departments use our facilities for training. On the far east side of the base, we have softball fields and a base lake. We have more than 40 aircraft assigned to the base. The E-4B is the military's version of the 747-200. It has a variety of missions, primarily that of the National Airborne Operations Center, or NAOC. The aircraft and its crew are on constant standby. If anything were to happen to the operations on the ground, the NAOC is ready at a moment's notice to assume command. Most of the other aircraft here are different versions of the C-135. They have a top speed of about 400 miles per hour and a ceiling of 45,000 feet, and their unrefueled range is about 5,400 miles. The RC-135 reconnaissance aircraft we have assigned here are the Rivet Joint, Combat Scent, and the Cobra Ball. The Rivet Joint, or more commonly known as the RJ, is the aircraft with a big nose and cheek pouches. These aircraft fly in international airspace and gather electronic signals. The aircraft with the chin is called the Combat Scent. It takes the information gathered from the RJ, and the personnel on that aircraft look for specific electronic signals and identify the locations from where those signals are being sent. The aircraft with a black wing and the 4 big windows is called the Cobra Ball. These are used for verification of international weapons treaties by collecting optical and electronic data on ballistic missiles. The aircraft with the regular nose and visible sensor on the side of the cabin is known as the Constant Phoenix. It's a WC-135 aircraft that's used to conduct low to medium altitude atmospheric sampling. The aircraft with the white nose is an OC-135. It's referred to as an open skies aircraft because it's used for verification of the Open Skies Treaty, which was initiated during the Eisenhower administration. In addition to the 55th Wing's aircraft, we also have the Navy E-6B Airborne Command Post aircraft here at Offutt. The E-6B is STRATCOM's Airborne Command Center, which would take command of our strategic forces should the underground command center be destroyed. The Alert Facilities is an area where the alert crews can visit with their families if mission allows. They have sleeping quarters, a dining facility, and a family area. The Benny Davis Maintenance Complex is the focal point for all RC-135 maintenance activities. Before its construction, airmen had to travel between numerous flight line facilities to perform maintenance on an aircraft. Now the aircraft can be brought into one single building where maintenance can be performed on engines, avionics systems, and airframes, all without having to go outside. The hangar can hold 5 of our aircraft wingtip to wingtip. The Offutt Field House was built during World War II. The building was used to make aircraft modifications, but today it's one of the largest fitness centers in the DoD. It has 4 tennis courts, 4 racquetball courts, 2 basketball courts, and 2 volleyball courts, plus 4/10 of a mile running track, an indoor swimming pool, a soccer field, weightlifting equipment, free weights, a batting cage, and an aerobics room. The Offutt Fire Station was officially opened in May of 2005 and is approximately 42,000 square feet. One of the largest in the Air Force, the station houses 75 firefighters, 18 vehicles, and pieces of large equipment. It's located in the center of the base, which allows it to respond to anywhere on the base quickly. The new Army and Air Force Exchange Service Mini Mall opened in the summer of 2006, which sells just about anything you'd find in a department store. It houses some fast food restaurants, military clothing stores, a Starbucks, and our satellite pharmacy. And right next door is the commissary, which is a full-service grocery store. Just across the street from the BX is our transit ramp. If aircraft sit on this ramp, they're not based here at Offutt. They're here for fuel, minor maintenance, or crew rest. Because Offutt is in the middle of the United States, it's a great place for aircraft traveling cross-country to stop over. The large building with Global Vigilance for America on the wall is Offutt's Aero Club, which was the first of its kind in the armed forces. It was started in 1950 at the direction of General Curtis E. LeMay. It's also the only Federal Aviation Administration and Veterans Affairs approved pilot school in the state of Nebraska. The oldest part of the base is the Fort Crook district. The brick buildings were built in the 1890s. All of them are listed in the National Historic Register. The buildings on the west side of the parade grounds are known as General's Row. They house all of Offutt's senior officers, including the wing and group commanders. 4-star Navy Admiral Richards is the U.S. STRATCOM commander, and he lives in the house with a white picket fence. You can tell which branch of service they're in by the flag on their porch. Just behind General's Row is the home of the 55th Communications Group. It was a hospital in the 1950s, so it has the reputation of being the most haunted building on base. There was a YouTube series done on this building, and in 2019, one of our broadcast journalists followed a group of ghost hunters through the building looking for paranormal activities. The Strategic Air Command Memorial Chapel is one of 2 base chapels, both of which are non-denominational. Our chaplain corps consists of spiritual leaders from Catholic, Protestant, Jewish, and Muslim faiths, each of whom is free to conduct services in both chapels. This particular chapel has stained glass that depicts Strategic Air Command's history. Our confinement building, once known as the Fort Crook Brig, is the oldest operating jail this side of the Mississippi River. It was built in 1894. While some renovations have been made since then to the interior of the facility, the 3 solitary confinement cells are basically unchanged. The jailer's giant iron skeleton key still opens the main cell door. One of the buildings on the east side of the parade field is the home of the U.S. Air Force's Heartland of America Band. It's one of 10 Air Force bands stationed in the continental United States. And the other 2 buildings in the row used to house Fort Crook's Horse and Infantry Regiment. At the time, a center wing housed sleeping quarters, an exchange, and recreation with a 1-lane bowling alley. In 1946, a fire caused the center wing to burn down, and now we have 2 separate buildings. In the center of all these buildings is the parade grounds, where we hold change of command and other military ceremonies. Building D, or the Martin Bomber Building's history, reaches back to World War II. This huge aircraft manufacturing plant built 1,585 B-26 Marauder bombers and 531 B-29 Super Fortress bombers. In fact, the 2 most famous B-29 bombers, the Enola Gay and the Boxcar that dropped the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, were built right here. Today, Building D is no longer an aircraft factory. Instead, it houses many offices and units, including our Civil Engineers Squadron, Supply Squadron, and Transportation Squadron. It also contains our bowling alley. This building is so big, 25 football fields would fit inside of it. There are 250 miles of electrical wiring, 5 acres of glass within it. When the building needs a fresh coat of paint, it takes about 33,334 gallons and 2 years to finish the job. Still, the building is only a third of the size of the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. Right next to Building D is Offutt's runway, which is 11,700 feet long, or a little more than 2 miles. and just behind Building D is Building C. It was the Martinelle Bomber Company's administrative building, but now provides all administrative functions for the base. It houses our finance, traffic management, military, and civilian personnel offices, and our base education center as well. The Naval Operations Support Center is a 19,000 square foot facility built in 2010 at $4.3 million. A full-time staff of nearly 20 sailors work in this building, while nearly 400 naval reservists from 9 units around the area work here throughout the year. The new Child Development Center opened in September of 2009. It provides child care for about 300 children from the ages of 6 weeks to 12 years old. And with the old CDC staying open, the total number of children being cared for is about 500 children per day. Just behind the CDC on the hill is the Kaufman Heights housing area. The 557th Weather Wing is the Air Force's only weather wing. The facility houses the wing's leadership, 2 groups, and 4 squadrons. At the heart of the building is a $322 million high-performance computing data center, which houses the supercomputing power needed to provide environmental intelligence for the Department of Defense, the national intelligence community, and allied partners around the world. The base cemetery was built in the early 1900s and is recognized as a national cemetery. The building labeled courthouse is just that. It's our base legal office. It was originally where General Curtis E. LeMay sat while he was waiting for the Stratcom building to be built. The building is used to process small non-judicial cases and court-martials. It's also where the wing sets up its tax center each year. The dormitories are where enlisted airmen live for the beginning of their careers. Traditionally, the airmen will live here for about 3 years, and then they'll be given the opportunity to move into a housing unit or housing off base. Other circumstances like availability, time in service, moving up in rank, and things like that will affect their time here too. Near the dorms, you'll find the Kenny Gate or the Flag Gate. The local community donated the rows of flags, and they're displayed chronologically in the order the states were admitted into the Union. The first aircraft on display is the EC-135 Looking Class. Its mission was to provide airborne backup to the U.S. Strategic Command's Underground Command Center should the underground be destroyed or become incapacitated. Today, that mission continues on the Navy's E-6B aircraft. The B-52G Strata Fortress was the first aircraft of its type delivered to the Strategic Air Command in 1955. Nicknamed the Eldership, when it was retired in 1990, it was the oldest B-52G in the Air Force inventory. And finally, over near the Stratcom gate sits a B-17. Offutt's B-17 was originally assembled in 1943 and transported to MGM Studios for the use in the film Footprints in the Sky. However, the film was never produced, and the B-17 sat in the MGM Studios storage until the 1960s. After being moved and stored at various locations in Southern California until the early 1980s, the B-17 was given to the Air Force and displayed at Beale Air Force Base, California. In 1989, Offutt Air Force Base acquired the B-17 as a gate guardian and christened it Homesick Angel.